I didn't really think Great Axe and Rapier would be super good. The first time I played it, I had a lot of fun playing it, but I didn't really get a good feel for the build, and my impression was, I don't know how strong this guy's gonna be. Well, I've played it for a couple days now, and to be perfectly honest, this might be the best melee light armor build in the game right now. Great Axe and Rapier are both fantastic weapons, offering excellent offense, defense, and mobility, and pairing these two guys together using that Abyss Axe, oh my god, look at that 8k execute. Yeah, the combos this build has are absolutely disgusting. Its burst damage is fantastic, but the icing on the cake is definitely that mobility. You can get on top of ranged opponents, you can stick to them, and you have excellent getaway capabilities on a build like this. Now, all the mobility that those gap closers give you means that you can run this build in medium or even heavy armor if you wanted. Even solo in the heavier armor weights, I think would work because you have those gap closers to break distance so quickly. And I think the big issue that heavy armor has, at least when they're solo, is being able to control how many opponents are on top of them in a fight. So yeah, you have a lot of options with a build like this. By no means do you have to stick to light armor like I have, but I really like it personally in light because that mobility is so crazy. And this guy here, oh my god, he literally has no health bar left, and he manages to get away. Now, of course, I've got a bunch of PvP commentary for you guys starting off this video, and the last half of the video is going to be a fairly detailed breakdown of the build. There is also a written guide on my website, pvpnewworld.com, a link down below for you guys if you want to see that too. And without further ado, let's get into that PvP commentary. So, starting off with this fight here, yeah, got a few enemies on me in OPR and just kind of use that mobility to break a little bit of distance. And there you see this guy goes for the riposte, and I just hit it right at the end. I mean, what can I say? Sometimes you just make excellent moves in PvP. And he ends up rolling through, but still with the Great Axe, I can just stay right on top of him. He's not trying super hard just to run away. But yeah, there's no way that he can escape this kind of a build with Bow Rapier. And we just give him the pokes, down he goes, and then I come back out here again looking for some more fights. I see this guy here, and he is not pulling his weapons out, and he's also kind of chopping around when I try to hit him with my rapier. See how I'm just having trouble sticking on him? Yeah, I think maybe he's just lagging or something, but either way, I'm still going to kill him. What can we say, huh? There you see the beautiful heavy attack into the 7.5k execute. Just kind of a little show of how much damage that kind of a combo can do. Now, of course, people can dodge out of that combo, but if you have them gassed for stamina, oh my god, that is a deadly smack. And I head towards the road, start battling it out with this archer, get him very low health with the Reap, but he ends up dodging the execute. Maybe should have just gone for a quick light attack. I might have been able to connect that. And then another, where that same archer lands a great riposte on me there, just kind of stopping me from finishing off that flesh combo on him. So I use the Great Axe gap closer to go through the enemy group while kind of around them, because you can't hit them with the gap closer, you'll stop moving. And I managed to get a nice riposte on this guy. The heavy attack into the Reap and tons of damage on him. And then the flesh to stick on top of him. And I've still got that Great Axe gap closer. Again, he tries to break that distance. We are too fast. We get on top of him right away. Finish him off with the Rapier. And now I've got 3 enemy players on top of me here. So I'm just going to do my best to bait out that riposte. And there is the execute. A 3k heal from that execute. If I had that perk on my Great Axe, man, I might have actually been able to keep this fight going because we have an extra 3k health there. But yeah, so much damage. And there you kind of see how the execute can be used defensively as well for that very strong heal. Moving on to the next fight, this guy comes in, great sword flying. I get the riposte on him into the execute. He has almost no health left. And he tries to survive, but he ends up blowing his stam again. And I'm just going to stick to him with the rapier to finish him off. And, well, a bit of time goes by. He ends up coming back, but this time he brings a friend with him. They both dump the gravity wells. I do a good job avoiding that. Go for a riposte. They had a lot of time not to hit that, but they still hit it. I did manage to get the stun on one, but I don't capitalize any combos. And this guy chases me around the corner. I open with the execute. I actually kind of like opening with the execute like that because people don't expect you to lead with such a smack. And I get a good chunk of his health out with that combo. He ends up trying to run away with the greatsword, but I'm going to stick right on top of him with this build. Never mind, I end up turning around and I'm just going to confront the enemy Great Axe and Fire Staff player that comes here, but the other guy decides that he's going to come back and rejoin this fight. I pull him in with the Reap, try to go for an execute. That was really poorly aimed, but there's the flesh to make up for it, and then we land the riposte on the Fire Staff player after bringing that other guy down. I try to hit him with the heavy attack into the gap closer. I do quite a lot of damage, and he gasses his stamina there, very close to dead. And then I try to land the flesh on him, but I end up having to back out because the archer's coming in. And there you see again that execute, man. I mean, honestly, if you just throw it, people might dodge it, but if they don't, and they are below half health, it is basically a death sentence. And unfortunately there, I just didn't have enough gas left in the tank. But the argument again is, if I had that additional healing from the execute, that might have been enough to get me to my next potion there. Moving on to the next fight, I engage with these guys in the central area here, and they all end up following me. I have to use both gap closers to make that escape, but then I get caught with some nasty stuns. I get a really nice Reap there. Reap does heal you for some of the damage done, so I steal a bit of health out of them, and it's just enough to keep myself up. And I get around the pillar, trying to break some line of sight, go for the Great Axe Gap Closer to go a little bit further and get some distance behind this other wall here. But the Greatsword player jumps right on top of me. I do get a good read on his incoming attacks. Again, the very late riposte, but it ends up working. I try to go for the Reap to finish off the low health player. Unfortunately, he ends up getting away, but there's the heavy attack and it connects. He ends up going down, and then I use the Great Axe Gap Closer to just break a little bit of distance so I can drink that potion. But the pressure from these guys is relentless, and yeah, I'm just going to have to do my best to stick it out and try to fight them. I just start swinging the Great Axe, do manage to get a pull on that Reap, but then I get caught right away by these guys. Lots of damage coming in. I'm forced to use my ultimate for that healing, and of course the resistance to that stagger. Catch a nice riposte on that guy, hit him with a heavy attack, and then right away gap close away. And as he comes around the corner, I completely miss the Reap. That would have landed if it was on target. He didn't dodge it. That was just my miss. And again, just using those gap closers to control the distance. And I try to actually get on top of the lower health player with the gap closer there. Unfortunately, I connect with the other guy. But oh my god, the damage that this Great Axe does. I'm just chipping away at these guys. And here I gotta just be a little bit on the sad side. I mean, this is 100% the desync just kind of screwing me over there. Yeah, he should have died like 5 or 6 chops ago, but nope, he keeps getting away. I do manage to get the finishing poke, but now because I had to follow him so far, I am so out of position, and yeah, I do my best to not go down here. Using the gap closers, there's that incredible distance broken, but there are too many enemy players shooting at me, and as you guys can imagine, there is the last poke from a Fire Staff, and I end up going down. Okay, so let's take a look at the builds, starting off with our attributes. 50 Dex, 350 Intel, 25 Focus, and 150 Constitution. Now, this build is missing about 30 attribute points just because my gear score is a little bit on the low side right now, so you could stack some more points in here, but I do think that this is probably the best way to do this spread. If you wanted to take the points out of Focus, you could put another 50-ish points in Dexterity, giving you quite a bit more Rapier damage, but at the end of the day, I do think having at least 350 in Intel is the way to go for that 10% ability damage. Really, really nice. And then 150 Constitution, you could run more or less. It's up to the user. I think 150 is kind of the sweet spot for a light armor melee build, at least preserving a lot of damage and still having pretty good durability still. And then, of course, that 25 in Focus. This is a preference for me for that ability cooldown reduction. It's up to the user if you want to put this in here, but again, kind of like the Fire Staff Great Axe build that I just put out, having that ability cooldown just allows you to pop out more skills, so it's great for your offense and your defense. Yeah, I really like this 25 Focus. Likely all the builds I play will have 25 Focus on them. Now, let's take a look at the weapon mastery. The Rapier tree I'm running is a pretty standard Grace tree. I've got everything in the Grace tree except for these top two, On Guard, and of course Refreshing Strikes for the cooldown reduction. But yeah, Evade, Riposte, and Flesh, fantastic stuff for PvP. If you wanted to, you could definitely run Flourish and Finish, or even an entirely different Rapier Bleed kit. It's totally up to you, but for the defensive utility that the Grace kit gives, paired with the big burst that Great Axe has, I do really like this combo. And then when we take a look at that Great Axe tree, you can see I've gone for a pretty much full Reaper tree, minus a few passives on the Mauler side. These passives, of course, are just to make the heavy attack, and the pulls add roots, which is really nice. And of course, that stamina recovery from Mauler's Resolve is super important. But yeah, enough points to get Bloodlust, a big deal with Great Axe, gives this build excellent chase potential against a target. And then, of course, all these skills. Charge, a fantastic gap closer, gives you grit, so really strong defensively as well because of that. And you pop into the charge right away, so it's very, very good all around. And then we've got Reap for that very long distance pull into the combination attack. This can not only pull an opponent from a long distance, but deal huge amounts of damage when you hit them, and of course staggers them. And last but not least, Execute. I am running the Mending Execute perk on this build, and I would even recommend you probably run it on the Axe. We'll talk about that in just a sec, but yeah, really like Execute. But you could switch out the Execute for any skill of your choice here. I think that they are all honestly pretty good options, but yeah, there you go. All right, so let's take a look at the equipment. The first weapon, of course, the Rapier. I got a pretty good Rapier, honestly, pretty early on in this expansion. Omnidirectional Evade, Keenly Jagged, and Trenchant Crits. Omni and Keenly Jagged are pretty much BIS this patch. Trenchant Crits I would like swapped out for something like maybe Attunement or a Shirking Damage perk, but yeah, this is a fantastic Rapier. You definitely want Omnidirectional Evade on Rapier. You could go for Sundering Riposte on the Rapier for this build as well, or even in your gear. I don't have Sundering Riposte on, but it would just up your damage combos, especially the Riposte into the Execute. So yeah, it is a pretty good option there. Moving on to the Great Axe, we've got the Abyss, and this, oh my god, the combination of Great Axe Rapier is a lot of fun, but it doesn't make sense in a few ways. Number one, the Abyss gains 15% bonus damage when your mana is below 100%. We don't have a way to lower our mana on this kind of a weapon combo, so we don't get to enjoy that 15% additional damage. That being said, it's still a really good weapon. I don't know what to say. The Abyssal Attunement, refreshing move, and then of course the fact that it's void damage, it hits super hard even without that additional 15%. And then of course for the final perk on the Abyss, for me personally, I would go with Mending Execute or Crippling Reap. Leaning towards Mending Execute because that Execute hits crazy hard and you can get like a 5 or 6k heal off of it. And I think that that would be an incredibly good, not only offensive, but defensive perk slot because it gives you so much more durability when you go for that killing blow. But you could also go for something like Trenchant Strikes or additional damage when you have Grit. There's a lot of options here, but I do think the weapon perks are probably the best choice for the Abyss. And then when we take a look at my gear here, let's talk about the chest first of all. So I've got Mending Execute on here. 32% of the damage you deal, you will heal from Execute. So in the footage that you guys have watched, double the healing power that you see from Executes is what you can expect if you have it on the Axe. Really, really good perk. Again, I don't have Crippling Reap on this build, but if I did have an item that had it, like an armor piece, I would definitely run that too. And Sundering Riposte are really good options for the armor as well. Now, let's talk about the ideal armor perks. We've got Shirking Heals, LE, or Physical Aversion, and then the final perk would be something like Refreshing or Freedom. And I don't have any Freedom on this build. I think you should definitely try to run Freedom in PvP if you can. I am running Stone Form, which is kind of a save for not running Freedom, but yeah, ideally I would have gear that instead of has health here, has something like Freedom on it. But Shirking Heals in general, very strong in PvP right now. I've got 3 Shirking Heals on, including the perk on my boots here, and then I've got the Shirking Blessing from the boots as well. But the boot Shirking Heals not only gives that Empower and a Fortify, but it has no cooldown. So any attack that you dodge, you can expect to heal around 500 health on a build like this with those boots. And it works from PvE dodges as well. Honestly, these might be the best armor artifact in the game. I didn't think that it would have no cooldown, and that completely changes how good they are. I would say that this Shirking Blessing perk, just the healing alone, is worth 3-ish Shirking Heals perks if you're actively dodging attacks. So yeah, really, really, really strong. And then, of course, Refreshing Physical Aversion, really nice to have. On the legs, you definitely want to get yourself Shirking Energy for that additional stamina when you dodge an attack. And then, of course, moving on to the jewelry, we've got Stamina Recovery, Health, and Shirking Empower. Ideally, I would switch out Health for something like Thrust Protection, but Stamina Recovery, Shirking Empower, absolutely fantastic. You also have the option of maybe fitting in a Refreshing here if you want to have more Refreshing / Freedom on your build. And then for the ring, I've got the Band of Damon Dusk, again, a very low-level item, but we've got Refreshing Hardy and Keen Awareness. This is pretty much perfect for the build. If you don't have Refreshing here, I would recommend running Leeching. I think Leeching is incredibly good this patch. And then for the earring, I've got Refreshing Toast, Healthy Toast, and Nimble. I would like maybe Regenerating instead of Refreshing Toast or Nimble, but for the most part, this is a pretty BIS lower-level earring for me as well. And then when I take a look at the resists on this build, you can see 21% thrust resist, 11% fire damage resist. And we've got 2 physical aversion and 1 ele aversion. I'm kind of weighted more towards thrust resist right now. I think putting a little bit more elemental resist or even fire resist would be a little bit more beneficial, but ideally for a build like this, those are the 2 damage types that are the most threatening to you. So yeah, that is what I like to build against. And then, of course, you want to run the best food that you have access to. You definitely want to run some Desert Sunrise to reduce the duration of dots on you. And then, of course, a Honing Stone for that additional weapon damage. Stoneform is a fantastic rune option for this build. You could go with something like Detonate as well. Honestly, any ultimate is a good option for you, but I do really like Stoneform, especially for solo PvP, and especially since I don't have Freedom on right now. All right, that's the build for you guys. I've got one last bit of footage here as I say goodbye, so thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed. I hope you liked the build, and if you give it a try, let me know what you guys think, because this build has been crazy fun for me to play. And I'm very curious to see what kind of skills people would want to run on a build like this, because I feel like there are a ton of viable options for it. Of course, if you want to see a written guide for this build and so many more, you can find it on my website, pvpnewworld.com. There's a link down below for you. And if you have an awesome clip that you want to send into the New World Top 5, send that to Kristofer at pvpnewworld.com. Best of luck to you guys. I hope to have another episode coming out really soon. If you guys want to catch me live on Twitch, there's a link to my Twitch down below for you too. Of course, a big thank you to our sponsor, ExpressVPN. They help keep you safe on the internet, and you guys can get a deal with them thanks to the link down below. And last but not least, a massive thank you to all of my patrons on Patreon for supporting the show. Without you guys, I wouldn't have been able to keep it going for so long. So thank you guys so much for all the support. Thank you everybody just for tuning in and watching. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed the gameplay and the build, and look forward to more from me in the future. I'm already moving on to something else. Have a good one, everybody, and I'll see you next time.